Hey there, we have like eons of stories to tell, so if you want to follow us along on this journey and keep up with all the stories that we have putting out, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Hope you enjoy. Thank you. Hey, what is up everybody? Chad is here, and today we're continuing with the Superior Spider-Man. And this story is this story is kind of funny because like the first thing that happens in this story is basically Spider-Man just shows up to J. Jonah Jameson and just starts calling him an idiot, right? Just like ripping him a new one because he's basically shining this huge light in the sky, trying to get Spider-Man's attention with a spider on it. Basically letting every single person know where this guy is, right? Like all the villains can just like show up here and basically just kill him if they wanted to, right? Like he's just really just ripping him a new one, right? And basically when he gets there, he just tells him, you know, never use this thing again, right? Like he never use this thing again, never turn it on. Like there's no need for it. I'm gonna give you a safe number that you could just call whenever you need me. Use that. Just never use this light again, right? And he throws a spider bot on it and just basically destroys it, right? So the second reason that Spider-Man is there is actually basically for J. Jonah Jameson to ask him about the Vulture, right? Like they've heard about the Vulture and all of the tiny vultures that's been going around, you know, like messing up stuff, and they're just trying to figure some stuff out, right? And he's basically having Carly Cooper go and work with Spider-Man so that, you know, they can work together and actually take this guy down, right? But Spider-Man, so this is Doc Ock, okay? Everyone knows this is Doc Ock at this point. Well, not everyone, like in terms of in the story, but like, you know, like all like 30 years and stuff, you know, like we all know this is Doc Ock. He had like close dealings with the Vulture before, right? So what he's doing is he's not gonna let anyone else come with him to go and take down the Vulture, right? Like he's like, we'll see what he actually does, but he's gonna just keep this between, you know, like mono, right? Like just like one-on-one, just him and the Vulture, right? So basically he asked like J. Jonah Jameson to use a police lab. You know, he wants to modify his suit a little bit. You know, he's like messing with the lenses and stuff like that. And he's telling Carly Cooper, you know, I don't need your help, stuff like that. Just stay here, okay? So eventually he takes off, right? And like while he's swinging, you know, to go to the Vulture, he's basically like looking at, you know, all his different memories and stuff with the Vulture, right? Like, you know, like reminiscing about, you know, how close they were, you know, like not extra close, but you know, like all the dealings that they had with each other, right? You know, like they went on a bunch of missions and stuff, you know, the Sinister Six, stuff like that, right? And he's like, you know, he's reminiscing about this stuff. And what happens when he actually brings these memories up is the consciousness of Peter Parker, the afterthought that he's basically been hearing, it gets launched into this memory with him, right? You know, he's just like walking around, you know, he's just sitting there. He figures out where the Vulture is. You know, he makes his way into this warehouse, and Peter Parker, you know, he's just like, you know, hanging around this memory. You know, he's just sitting up in there, you know, just looking around, trying to figure out, you know, some stuff about Doc Ock. And Spider-Man, you know, he shows up to the Vulture, right? Okay, so this part here is like really interesting how this is gonna go out, right? So he shows up to the Vulture, and he's like telling him as soon as he lands, right? He's basically telling the Vulture, stop doing this, right? Like stop the crime, stop doing all this stuff, stop living the life that you're living now. I have millions like in a bank account that you can have. Like just leave and go be happy, okay? And it's basically the Vulture thinks he's lying, right? Because this is Spider-Man. He doesn't know this is Doc Ock, right? Like he thinks this is Peter Parker, you know, talking to him, right? So in the midst of, you know, Spider-Man trying to like tell him, you know, like go like stop, you know, like everything could be yours, all you gotta do is stop, like Peter Parker actually, you know, like launches his hand and like punches one of these tiny vultures, right? You know, they're trying to take him down, you know, stuff like that. But what happens is when he does that, like he launches his Vulture into a wall, right? And the mask falls off, and he realizes this is just a kid, right? And as soon as that happens, the consciousness of Peter Parker, he like, you know, he starts shuffling through memories, right? And he lands in the memory of Doc Ock, right? And what this memory is showing is Doc Ock had an abusive father, right? Like his father, he was literally just beating the crap out of him, basically, you know, for leaving lights on, like all that different kind of stuff, right? Like he was a victim of, you know, child abuse, right? Like so this thing is gonna like hit him way harder than it hit, like, you know, like Peter Parker or just like any normal person, right? So he freaks out. He's like, why on earth would you use children? Like he's like, you know, just like freaking out on the Vulture, right? So when the Vulture tries to get away, you know, he tries to fly off, Spider-Man chases him, right? Like this isn't just, you know, some normal, you know, fight between the two, right? Like Spider-Man is out for blood at this point, right? Like that actually hit him on a very personal level. So and eventually the Vulture, he gets the upper hand on Spider-Man, right? You know, he's like he has him like in a chokehold, and he's basically just getting ready to just like finish him, right? What Spider-Man does is, you know, he turns off his lenses. So Spider-Man, he uses the spider bot that he threw on the spider signal that, you know, that J. Jonah Jameson set up at the beginning of this issue. He uses that and like turns it on like the max settings, right? And it just blinds, it basically just blinds Adrian Toomes, right? It blinds the Vulture, right? Like the light is so bright that he literally can't see anything. So Spider-Man uses this to his advantage, and he basically climbs on the back of the Vulture and just guides him straight into this light, right? Just cutting him to pieces, like scarring him all to hell, right? So Carla Cooper sees this, and she's basically just like figuring out, you know, like this. There's no way that this is Peter Parker, right? Because Peter Parker never would have done this. Like he never would have done something so aggressive. He never would have took it this far, right? So after that, you know, like they basically go their separate ways. And it basically just skips ahead a little bit, right? And it's basically just showing, you know, Superior Spider-Man, you know, skipping through all the different accomplishments that he's been having, you know, in terms of him being Spider-Man, right? Like him sending all these different spider bots out to, you know, like watch through the city, you know, stuff like that. Basically just showing how much more effective he is than Peter Parker, right? Because he's using actual technology, something that Peter Parker doesn't necessarily do a whole lot of, right? Like Peter Parker, he just goes in and he just saves people, right? He doesn't think ahead, you know, like, you know, like stuff like that. Doc Ock, he has all these different, like, you know, different things in place to, you know, decide, you know, if he should be a place, if he shouldn't be a place. It's basically just him, you know, putting his mind and his brilliance to the test to basically be a more effective Spider-Man, right? Like there's this fire, right? And basically the spider bots are like, you know, informing him, you know, there's this fire there, and he tells the spider bot, you know, just call the fire department, right? Like let them know there's this fire here, tell them to be there, you know, just like that, right? Like the consciousness of Peter, you know, he thinks that, you know, Spider-Man should actually go and see about this fire himself, but you know, like he's just using all this technology to basically, like, you get the one thing that Spider-Man never had enough of, right? Which is time, right? Like, so what he's doing is, while like all this is going on, he makes it to Aunt May's therapy session, right? Like that's the one thing that Peter Parker never really had enough of, right? Like him going through saving the city, at one point, you know, school, you know, stuff like that, work. He's never had enough time, right, for relationships. And basically, you know, like he's basically building that for himself, right? Like he's at the hospital with Aunt May, you know, like there with her little therapy sessions, you know, stuff like that. And he's basically trying to figure out a way for her to be able to, you know, like walk correctly again, right? Because, you know, like she can't walk, you know, like normally, like how she should. And he's trying to like figure out a way to do that. So what he's gonna do is, when he goes back to Horizon Labs, he's gonna try to build something to like to help her out, right? Like to get her back on track to where she can actually walk, you know, stuff like that. And basically, he's like, you know, when he's done with it, he's basically like calling Max Modell and the guy who works in the room next to his, right? And basically, like what he's showing them is, he basically built this machine. It's basically like an exolimb, right? Basically to try to help Aunt May walk better, right? And when he tells them that she is gonna be the first actual like test subject, they freak out, right? Like, so because they see him as being a mad scientist. Because at this point, he pretty much is, right? Like, you know, he starts freaking out, you know, stuff like that. And when he calls himself a doctor. He calls himself a doctor, right? Because he thinks that Peter Parker actually, you know, like finished college, right? Like he thinks that Peter Parker actually, you know, he got his doctorate, you know, stuff like that. He doesn't, right? And when they tell him that he doesn't, you know, he like figures it out. He doesn't have it. He never, you know, he never actually finished college. So he's going to go back and he's gonna finish college himself, right? Because with all the brilliance and intelligence that Peter Parker has, there's no way that Doc Ock, you know, is gonna actually let himself not have a doctorate, right? So he goes and he's basically like, you know, going back to school, right? So from there, we go to Ravencroft, right? And we're basically looking at this villain, you know, this guy named Massacre. You know, when they look in his cell, there's this dude and he's just dead in there, right? But it's not Massacre at all, right? Like, it was actually the guard of him. Like, it was the person who's supposed to be watching over him. And when they realize Massacre is actually the guard that was standing there, he kills that guy and kills the woman that actually went in to go check on this dude. So from there, Doc Ock, you know, he goes to, you know, college, you know, he meets the dean, you know, stuff like that. She takes him to his class, and basically, like, as soon as he gets there, the dean, I mean, the professor here, you know, he's acting a little rough for, you know, whatever reason. And basically, when he's walking to his seat, it's this girl, you know, like, she hands him a note, and basically what she's saying is, you know, if you're gonna survive this class, you're gonna need this right here, right? And basically what it is this girl who's basically going to try to tutor him, right? So he gets a call from Ravencroft, and basically they're telling him to come because basically these three people have been killed, and they're trying to figure out what's going on, right? Like, they basically know who it is, you know, it's Massacre, but they're trying to figure out, you know, like they're trying to get Spider-Man to actually help them out with this, right? So he gets there. J. Jonah Jameson is basically blaming him because Spider-Man actually let this guy live, right? Like, instead of just killing this dude, you know, he just sent him to Ravencroft, and that was it, right? So when this dude got out, J. Jonah Jameson is saying that, you know, like, their blood is on your hands, right? If you would have just done what needed to be done, he wouldn't have been able to do that, right? Like, he would not be alive. He would be dead. You know, like, everyone's life would have been spared, right? So Spider-Man, he takes off and he's getting prepared to actually, you know, like finish this guy, right? So when we find this dude, he's basically at this restaurant, you know, like, he has it held up, you know, he's got a gun pointed at all the people, and basically what he's telling this dude is, the guy at the register, if you press the security button, like, if you press the silent alarm, I'm gonna kill everybody in here. So this dude actually tests him. He pressed the silent alarm. This dude Massacre literally just like puts his cup down, sprays down the entire building, right? Like, kills everybody here except for a woman and her child, right? So what Spider-Man does is he actually goes to the neighboring scientist at Horizon Lab. Oh, holy crap, I just had that. I don't know why that was so difficult for me to say. The neighboring scientist at Horizon Lab, right? This guy was working on facial recognition. Oh my god. Right? Recognition software, right? And he's like trying to incorporate that into his spider bots, right? To be able to like find this guy Massacre. So if he can like, you know, have all these spider bots going around, it'd be way easier to find this dude, right? Because eventually one of them is gonna see him, right? So he gets this dude's help, you know, basically to incorporate the recognition, the facial recognition. Oh my god, English is so difficult. Holy crap. Recognition software. So when that happens, this dude Massacre, he basically took the woman and her child and basically just sent her off on her way, right? Like, you know, he dropped her off and basically saying like, if you tell, you know, if you say anything, if you start running anything like that, I'm gonna kill you, right? So they end up going there separated, you know, like she leaves and basically goes off and does her own thing. So now, when with most of the vultures, like, you know, like little minions, little henchmen, like those little kids, you know, being, you know, incapacitated and, you know, taken out by Spider-Man, a couple of them were, you know, where they were done, right? And when they're getting watched by this spider bot, basically like they're looking at these two dudes, basically the Goblin shows up and basically saying he's gonna be the one to take out this Spider-Man, right? Like everyone's scared of him. I'm not. Everyone else is terrified of, you know, some of the extreme measures that he's been taking. Let him come and try that with me, okay? I'm gonna kill him, right? That's basically what's gonna happen, all right? So if you're new to this story, leave a like, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and I will see y'all in the next one.